Hi, I'm Jonathan, and today on Hanging Out with the Guides, we have Crystal Kulpcavage. Crystal, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jonathan.
Crystal helps professional women align with their life's work. She empowers women to become creative, intuitive, charismatic powerhouses so they can lead long, exciting, meaningful lives doing what they love. Crystal is a leadership coach for life and business, healer, spiritual teacher, and speaker. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and a Master of Business Administration. She also holds certifications as a professional coach and a Reiki healer. You can reach Crystal via her website, seekingasenseofpurpose.com. So, Crystal, tell me about who you are and what you believe your role is in this life. When you leave this world, what impact do you want to have left?
So I find it interesting that this is such a deep question right off the bat. This is something that my clients really, that's the question that just about everybody I work with is trying to answer. What role do I want to play in my life? And for me, I didn't really have that answer until about 10 years ago. It was quite a journey. So how I define myself now is very, very different than what I would have answered about a decade ago. Now, I see myself mostly as a change catalyst. Change is something that I love. I found out early in life it's something that I'm good at. I always run to change, whether it's something as silly as a new hair color or rearranging my office or whatever it may be. Now they say everybody has their own gifts and their own talents and really what makes you tick. And tapping into that is really what brings the fulfillment in your life. For me, I didn't really understand what my strengths were for quite some time. And I think that's common because our strengths come natural to us. They really are gifts. And if you start looking around and seeing what is easy for you, but maybe more challenging for others, you'll start figuring it out. And of course, asking the people around you what your strengths are is a good help as well. But you have to be careful because they'll be quick to tell you your faults too. So careful what you're questioning. But for me, I see myself as that change catalyst, and that shows up in many ways as a teacher, a spiritual teacher, a healer, and primarily as a coach. So my focus is helping professional women align with their life's work. And for me, it's really about figuring out who you want, who you are, what you want, and then learning how to bring that into the world and be successful at it. So on a smaller, more minor scale, it's working with people individually to help them achieve their goals. But on a grand scale, my mission is really to start changing the world one person at a time. Because when you embrace who you are and what you want to do with this world, not only are you changing your life, which is awesome to say the least, but you're showing other people that it's possible. You're leading by example. And the way I see it, the more people that take that path, the quicker we get to a place that values things like authenticity and passion and creativity and gets away from the more fearful approaches that are kind of ruling this world now. So I'm all about bringing some fun to the world, some creativity, but doing it in a logical way so that you can be successful at it.
That was such a good answer.
Yeah.
I really like that. I like that approach. Obviously, if we were all to think what's easy for me, what fulfills me, that isn't necessarily easy for others. The interesting thing is that we're not always aware that it's not easy for others. So the real part of the question is, what's easy for me? Because if something's easy for us, then there are likely to be many people for whom it's not easy. And then if we just represent our strengths, we act from those strengths, then we can be a force of that, set that example, like you were saying. And then people can benefit from those strengths and actualize those parts of themselves. And that obviously, that's the greatest gift to the world that we could give, that we could be the best versions of ourselves so that we could set that example and allow people to see what's possible in the areas that we're excelling.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
I also want to make note of obviously when we're asking people our strengths, they might be quick to point out our faults. If we're in a place where that's happening, then it means that we're probably pretty quick to point out our faults as well, and they're reflecting that back. And then those are the very things that we probably want to address for the sake of our moving forward, not by focusing on them, but by saying, well, how can I turn that into a strength? How can I redirect that? How can I work with that? Or how can I, draw my attention away from that being the focus and more on my strengths being the focus? And then obviously we'll get that reflected back by people. And the more people are actually quicker to point out our strengths, the more we know we're on the right track.
Absolutely. There's signposts everywhere all the time, whether it's pointing out where we need to improve or where we're doing a good job. The information's always there.
Mm-hmm. It's nice that that's the case. So how did you get to where you are today? Tell me some of the key parts of your story that might allow people, wherever they are in their own paths, to relate to you and the path you traveled to where you are now.
So my life was very different, as I mentioned before. I grew up knowing how to make smart decisions. I knew how to build a secure and a stable life. I knew what I wanted to provide for a family eventually. So I went into computer science. I became a software engineer. I worked in the corporate world for about 12 years doing that. And it was fun at times. I mean, I'm analytical. I like challenges. It was kind of fun. But I was going through a period of my life where slowly started to just get really frustrated with everything that was going on around me, whether it started at work, but it would bleed into other areas of my life. I knew something needed to change, but sometimes it's not always easy putting your finger on what needs to change. You just know you have to change, but you kind of got to figure it out first. So for me, I had a reality check. It came in the form of a tragedy, but now I really can look back and see it as a blessing. When I was in my 20s, I lost a very dear friend of mine. It happened suddenly, and he was actually more like a brother to me growing up. Being an only child, that's a huge title to call somebody, like your sibling. But when he passed, it was so sudden. And, I know people pass a lot. People go through grief. It's a stage, it's part of life. But it was extremely different for me, this particular death. And I realized that, that could have been me. I could have been gone just as quickly as I came. And I started questioning how I was spending my time here and the value that I was providing. And I knew that it was my career that had to change at that point. So I went on doing some soul searching. You know what everybody does. They're Googling, what do I want to be when I grow up, even though you're already a grown-up, and trying to figure out where the story is going to go. So for me, it was all divine intervention, and I truly believe that. When I had no resources left, I just prayed and I asked, and I just hoped and wished that it would come to me. As the story goes along, one of my dogs, who I'm a huge dog lover, one of my dogs became ill, and she had complications that no veterinarian could diagnose. It was very strange. And someone suggested Reiki to me. And I had no idea what energy work was or what it meant to heal alternatively. So I went into an appointment myself, and I thought, okay, I have to go through it before my dog goes through it because I'm a good mommy here. And when I got off that Reiki table, my life was so different. I seriously, after one session, the room looked more colorful. I felt peace. The anxiety and the stress and the sadness were momentarily gone. And that moment taught me that it was everything here that was causing those feelings and not anything out there. So fast forward a couple years, I got into the spiritual path. It really helped me with my grieving. Started reading a lot of books, doing my own research. But I really was bothered by the fact that I felt so good after that Reiki session, but it only lasted for a short period of time. Because as you know, as soon as you get stressed, the old self comes back, and little Miss Miserable showed up before I wanted her to. And I was like, okay, I could fix this. I could change this. What is this thing here doing that's causing all this crap in my life? And that's when I found coaching. And coaching helped me remove those limiting beliefs that I had, remove the energetic blocks, and it gives me a way of managing my energy proactively. So I still love the healing in different forms of, manipulating your energy for your own benefit, but the coaching is what cleared this and caused everything else to shift. And with that, I got clarity, I got confidence, I got faith, and I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I was in the right place at the right time, and there was no question. I did a complete 180, software engineer went bye-bye. I up and left my 6-figure job, And I became a full-time professional coach, and I use Reiki and other forms of energy healing to supplement the transformation for my clients. So it's a story that went like this, you know, but in the end, I learned everything that I needed. I got all of my questions answered, and I can honestly say I love what I do, and I never thought that would happen.
When you talk about it, you actually make it sound very linear. So it's interesting that this is the way you describe it after you tell that story. It obviously, going forward, it looks like things are like this. And when we're looking back, it looks like we were just on a straight line, and it was all very clear. It was like, oh, of course this happened. That's, you know, how else would I have gotten here? And then this happened, and, you know, it's clear next step, and as though it was all planned out. Those were really good examples. Those portions of your life that you connected the dots. You presented the dots very well. That you can see how you would get from where you were to where you are with those dots being connected, and, you know, with each thing sort of refining the direction that you're going and like adding the next turn. It was yeah, it's very interesting to hear.
As you go through that process, though, this was the emotions, because you know, there's times when you fly high and you're like, "Ooh, this is the best thing I ever did," and then you have a couple of "what was I thinking" moments. So, you know, even when you're on your path, that's what they say. You plan like this, and God plans like this, but you always end up where you need to be.
Yeah, the key I've been increasingly learning is to imagine where we want to be when we get to the top, and then just imagine, okay, if that's the end of the movie, let's see how it plays out, and then there's less of this, and it's more, okay, all right, I guess this is how it's playing out, because we're trusting that things are going to work out in the end somehow, even if we don't know yet where that leads or what that looks like.
I'm a big believer that the universe only does things for us, not to us. And sometimes you got to sit back like you have a bag of popcorn and just watch the show.
Yeah, definitely. So with all of this journey, in all of this journey, what are some of the most important lessons you've learned on this journey, and who have been some of your greatest teachers?
The lessons, there's so many. The one that comes to my mind first and foremost, and you know, this sounds cheesy, but money does not buy happiness. I know now, I mean, I literally built a white picket fence around my house trying to get there. And I know now that no matter how much money or security you have, first of all, it's not always guaranteed to be there. So giving up everything for that doesn't really get you far. But even when you do have it, if you don't have the time or the energy or just the desire to enjoy it anymore, you know, you really, sometimes you just get to that place and you're like, what am I doing? Why was I climbing and pushing and struggling so hard to get here? I'm not even sure what I was looking for. So I always tell people, if you're looking for a fulfilling life, something that when it is your time to move on, that you can look back and say, wow, that was awesome, it has to come from the heart. It doesn't come from what logically makes sense. Sometimes you got to throw the logic out the window. I mean, we need to use our brain, we need to interpret things, but it's not the way to make the decisions for the major life decisions. It's all about letting go of some of the stress so you could get in touch with your intuition, so you know what your heart is telling you. And sometimes the path or the decision seems ludicrous. Like, no, why would I do that? That's going to take 10 times longer, and that's going to be much harder, or maybe too easy. That doesn't make any sense. But sometimes that's exactly where you need to go. Sometimes the sense just gets you into a place of an illusion of security and not really something that's fun and exciting. And I think the world needs more fun and more excitement, because we're spending so much time trying to prevent things or reacting to bad things and not enough time trying to create what we want. It's all about where we put our focus. So my lessons are really just about living out of your heart, using your mind to keep yourself in the right direction, but living from your heart. And when we talk about teachers, I mean, there's been so many of the great people out there. I mean, just reading an Einstein quote sometimes gets you thinking for 20 minutes, right? listening to Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, all of the great people. When I started in spirituality, somebody recommended, because I was dealing with grief, reading a Doreen Virtue book. She writes a lot of books on the angels. I actually started there. I think I read every book she ever written. And I remember lying in bed one time, just upon waking, and I heard, hello, clear as day. Clear as day, I almost jumped out of bed. And I knew that what I was reading had merit. And it opened my mind to, wow, there's a lot of stuff out there that maybe I can't see, or I don't understand, or nobody understands, but it may be out there. Once you open your mind a little bit, that's when the floodgates open and you start getting in flow with the universe. But on a more personal level, I mean, I really think the greatest teachers that I've had are the people in my life. And one of my beliefs is every time somebody crosses your path, even for a brief moment, no matter how random it seems, that person is providing you with something, be it an emotional charge that you need at that moment, a piece of information, a new perspective. So I really think that it was the people that I grew up with, the people that I walked past in the mall, the cashier at the grocery store. Everybody's teaching me something. Sometimes it's teaching me what I should be doing. Sometimes it's telling me what I shouldn't be doing. But just like you said, the universe is always reflecting messages back to you. That's what I truly believe. So, you know, when you ask who's the greatest influence, it's just about everybody, because sometimes the smallest little thing is the thing that you think about for years and changes your life.
When we're in that place where we see everything and everyone as our teacher, then we learn much more quickly, because obviously the lessons are coming from everywhere, and you know, we don't have to wait for someone to share a lesson with us, because it's being shared in that moment immediately.
You know, and I also believe that the quicker you realize you don't know a damn thing, the quicker things are going to come about for you, because it's all about opening your mind to possibilities that you didn't think would ever exist. If you want to start seeing different things in your life, you got to start thinking differently. So I don't hang my hat on anything. Everything's possible, and then more possibilities exist for you.
It's interesting how we transition from a place where we think that we have to figure it all out and everything is like rational, and we're trying to like work things out, figure out where we're going, figure out what the next step is, as though it's all on us. And that's when things don't go our way and life is stressful, and we're, like you said, looking at all the things we want to avoid, all the things that we want to fix, all the things that we want to change, make sure that they don't happen, and then it's all on us to figure everything out, instead of just deciding what we'd like to have happen, being open to even better things happening, and just opening ourselves to the possibilities. Like, okay, if anything could happen, but it's going to be good, then what's the next step now? And then not trying to be rational about it, and just letting everything guide us, letting the world take us forward, where we're listening. What feels right here? What feels like the next step? And when we're listening to that, then we can live in that limitless sense of possibilities, where we can just trust that we're being guided and things are working out, even when we can't yet explain why this is the best next step. It feels right, so we go with it. And like, you know, if the voice above the maze is saying this is the next step, it's better for us to listen to the voice above the maze than us lost in the maze. And like, you know, like, well, I took a right last time, maybe if I take a left this time, I'll get out, and we get ourselves more lost. So it's you know, all right, the voice above the maze, it feels right to go this way. I'm just gonna go and see what happens. Somehow it'll all work out, and then it takes all the stress out of life.
It does. And you know, so many times we tend, especially if you're trying to be successful, which a lot of people are, because I work with professionals, we tend to look and plan so far in advance. Well, here I want to be in a year, and 5 years, and 10 years, and ultimately this. I try to get people out of that mindset and say, live your life like you're walking to baggage claim. So, you know, when you land in an airport, you know what airport you're going to land in. You have an idea where you're going, right? But when you get off the plane, chances are you don't have a clear-cut map to where your bags are. You walk around the corner, you look up, oh, it's this way. One step at a time, and before you know it, you're standing there, hopefully, with your suitcase. But that's the same thing with life. What's my next step? And then looking for the signs that are around you, and you're going to get where you want to go.
Definitely. As long as you know that your intention is to get your baggage, then one step at a time will eventually get you there. But if you don't, it's just having the general larger picture, that like the general, like, what's my overall aim here? You know, what do I want the overall experience to be? What's the overall goal? Okay, I'm just going to take it one step at a time and somehow I'll get there. I don't need to map out all the details. That's not my job. I'll know when I get there, the next direction will be given to me.
Takes a lot of trust and a lot of faith, but once you start building on that, it comes naturally after a while.
Yeah, and then it's so much easier, and it's so much easier a way to live than the alternative, and it actually gets us the results we want. So it seems like it's worth it. So with all of these lessons, what have you concluded is the purpose of life? Why are we here?
I love this question too, because I talk to a lot of different people, and I think this is the one question that I ask everybody. Because to me, if you don't understand what the bigger picture looks like for you, what your belief system is, there's no way you could feel connected to something in this life. To feel, the name of my business is A Sense of Purpose. If you want a sense of purpose and connection and have a meaningful life, you got to know what you're connecting to. So first of all, I believe that anybody should believe whatever they want to believe. There's the beauty of this process is there's nobody that's going to stand there beyond the shadow of a doubt and say, nope, you're wrong. That's not what the universe is about. That's not what life's about. Nobody knows. So I joke, but I say, hey, if you want to believe that this is, world's run by like glittery butterflies floating around the stars, then that's great, but you have to live your life according to that. So my personal belief is I believe that we are here to grow and to evolve. And the next logical question always becomes, what are we evolving into? For me, I believe we're evolving into love, unconditional love. I'm talking loving yourself like you love your dog, like you love the dirt on the bottom of your shoe, connected to everyone and everything in this world. And we only get there through challenges. So another part of my belief system is that we come into this life, we incarnate into this life consciously. I don't believe everything's mapped out. I don't believe anybody's stamped as teacher or veterinarian or anything like that. But I think we come in here with lessons, and I think we come with challenges. And we say, if I get to be about 25 and I'm not feeling this yet, then you got to throw that right in front of me so that I go through that experience and I come out evolved. So I believe that the purpose of life is to grow, to connect, to love one another, which starts with loving ourselves. And I believe that we are here to support one another through that process. And any challenge or illusion of a challenge is really there for our benefit to grow.
That was great. Yes, I like the idea that we get to decide what our purpose is, what our perspective on reality is, and that it's just up to us to live in accordance with it. I really like that. That fits very well with the way that the world has pretty much gone, that people come up with all sorts of interesting cosmological frameworks, religious frameworks, and so forth. Then the key is just live in accordance with it. And I like the addition of love. I think if we were to add that to whatever frameworks exist, I think if that were always somehow integral in whatever people decide, if there are butterflies among the stars ruling the universe, as long as there's love in the picture, then that's great, because then people living in accordance with that belief system are going to be a force of love in the world, and for themselves, for the people around them, and then that whole framework will work very well with everyone else, and it won't matter whether there is some kind of objective truth that disagrees or agrees, because the way we're living is in harmony with what's around us. So I like the way you put all of that together as like seamless, perfect.
And one thing I'll add is it's also for me, I said I don't believe in labels. I don't believe somebody was born to be in this profession or do this thing before they pass on. But I do believe that we come in with roles, and our life purpose is more how we show up in a situation. It's the type of person we are. It's not what we believe or what religion we belong to or what job we take or anything like that. It's what we contribute and what value we bring to the table.
It's more in a lot of ways with how we're being rather than what we're doing. It's how we're being when we're doing. That's what matters. So obviously we could see where this might go with the idea that we're creating our own frameworks that we, as long as we're true to them. But I'd like to hear from you here. Tell me about God. Who or what is God, and what is our relation to such a source or being, or however you think of this?
So I use different terms interchangeably. Sometimes I'll say God, sometimes I'll say spirit, sometimes I'll say universe, sometimes I'll just say the energy around us. Now, I have a Catholic upbringing, and I don't want to nitpick into religions, but I always was taught of the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And to me, being that was my background, that is still how I somewhat look at it today. But for me, I define the Father personally as the ultimate intelligence behind everything, as the intelligent force, the source that is around us. The reason why things happen and how these things happen and how it comes to be for me is the Father. The Son, to me, is everyone walking this planet, whether you're an animal or any other kind of living being or a person, that we are all part of God. It's within us, it's outside of us, and we're all connected. And then finally, the Holy Spirit is the energy. It's the force. It's what we're made of. So I believe that there's different components, and I call them different things. Sometimes I feel the Spirit moved me. Sometimes I talk to God and I say, dude, what's going on? And it just depends on the moment and what feels right to me. But when we're talking about things like source and all that is, and all these terms that you hear all the time, I'm a visual person, and a lot of people are. And I think it's hard to kind of figure out what that means or what that would look like. So, it's kind of a silly metaphor, but I always tell people to think of energy like Skittles. Because there's different frequencies, different vibrations, they're all different color Skittles. But if you think of everything in this world is made of Skittles, right? I'm Skittles, you're Skittles, the desk, the bookcase, everything around us is Skittles. The space between us is Skittles. You start realizing that everything really is connected. We are constantly, whether we want to or not, influencing everything in our lives, whether it's the person next door or it's the environment that we're in, our home, the situations that are presented to us, how we deal with them. We're always influencing everything. It's a ripple effect of those Skittles going on. So for me, everything is defined as those Skittles, which is the energy, which is the source, which is, for me, that three-dimensional being.
I always find it interesting the way that we come from something where we're raised with some kind of philosophy or way of being, and then we have our experiences and it changes the terms for us, and we end up with a new philosophy that in some way is ours, but has bits and pieces or a framework or whatever that we adopted or it came before us, and then it becomes our own. It becomes our own view of reality, our own world scheme, and then we're all living amongst each other with our own world views. In a lot of ways, they're very similar worldviews, and we're just using different terms based on what our experiences have been up to this point, that we chose to use certain terminology, and in the end we're saying very similar things. It's always interesting to hear all the different ways we can describe pretty much the same things.
It's true. And I think that a lot of people's faith and what their belief systems are, many times we're all saying the same thing in slightly different ways. But and there is still a mystery to it. Even though I would describe it as, Skittles and all these different things, there's this not knowing that I really love about it. I mean, I love the mystery of saying, this is what I believe. I have no idea if I'm anywhere close to on target, but this is what I'm going to go with because I need something to grab onto, and I need something to build my faith. And at the end of the day, I think it's kind of fun that nobody really knows for sure who's right and who's wrong, if there is such a thing, and where we're going with it. So as far as, I believe part of your question was our relationship with God. I believe he's within, it's without, it's everywhere, it's all that is, and it's all the stuff we know, and it's all the stuff that we don't know.
It's I've used the metaphor of, it's like the glass in a marble. Like, there could be all sorts of colors and everything, but if everything is glass, the clear parts, the space between us would just be the clear parts of the marble, and then the colored parts, different shapes and whatever else, but the whole thing is glass. If the entire universe is a marble and everything in it is glass, then that's how we could understand, like the interconnectedness of everything. What's the relationship to God, the divine, whatever? It's the glass. So it's everything. It's every part of it. The whole marble is glass. It's solid glass. It's just a matter of what it looks like, in different parts of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I like the Skittles theory, though.
Yeah. Different metaphors for the same thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Everything and nothing all at the same time.
Exactly. So how does the universe work? What are the most fundamental rules or laws by which everything in the world operates?
So I think, again, with this, I think we could name a bunch of different rules. They have the law of attraction, the law of cause and effect. You could go on and on. But I think it all boils down to, in my terminology, the Skittles, and the fact that we are all constantly influencing everything around us. If there's something that's going on in your life and you don't like it, there's something going on within you that's causing that, that's attracting that, that's creating that, however you want to say it. Everything that you see externally can be shifted by shifting within the inside. Shift your influence. And even if you're not into this stuff, if you don't read the books and understand, well, how do I manage energy and all that stuff, you're still influencing things. I mean, I'm sure everybody's had the experience where they've been in a crowd of people and a Debbie Downer walks in, and all of a sudden, they're groaning and complaining, and, their head's hanging and they're heavy, and you're just like, ugh. That's influence. That person isn't trying to change the room, but they just did. The same way if somebody walks in and they're excited and something great happened and they're hugging everybody, all of a sudden you're uplifted, whether you wanted to or not. So for me, no matter what kind of law you want to call it or what kind of rule, it really comes down to the fact that you're constantly influencing the people around you, the things you see in your life, what you experience, how you experience them, your health, everything comes down to that principle. Whether it's attracting certain people to have relationships with, whether it's the reflecting, mirroring concept we touched on earlier, where if somebody's, if you have an in-law that drives you crazy, say, and there's something about them that drives you crazy, you need to say to yourself, where in my life am I doing that to somebody? Where is that showing up for me? And chances are, when you nip that in the bud, this whole problem with this relationship's gone. Either the person's out of your life for one reason or another, or that energy interplay is not there anymore and it doesn't bother you, or they stop triggering. So, it's all of these different things. And a big part of that too is knowing that you're influencing by what you're focusing on and what you're appreciating in life and what you're noticing. If you focus on something, there's going to be more of it in your life. So if you're focused on your lack, what you don't have, what's going wrong, you're going to have more lack and more things that you don't like coming up for you. But if you choose to focus on, wow, it was a long day, but hey, my son was so happy he got a lollipop at the bank today. You're going to get more lollipops at the bank. The good stuff is going to keep coming. So, in the grand scheme of things, every possibility always exists. You could focus on, things that are closer to what you want or closer to what you don't want. But either way, that's how you're influencing what you get back.
It's such an important thing to, like, if we all knew that that was the way the world worked, then we wouldn't be looking at what we want to avoid or what we want to change and giving that our attention and energy. And we would all actually be taking responsibility for our experiences, not in a blame kind of way, but that's the whole point, because we wouldn't be blaming others, we wouldn't be blaming ourselves. We would just say, okay, how did I bring this to myself? What do I want to bring to myself? How can I focus on that? What could I change in myself that would bring that about? as opposed to what I just saw reflected. And then we see people as messengers rather than people who clearly have to change in order for us to be in a better place, or circumstances as messengers rather than, well, when this changes, then everything will be fine for me. And until this changes, I'm not going to be happy, which totally takes the power out of our hands and limits our sense of possibility, because we're focused on it has to be this way. And if we could just, you know, look at it the way you just described, we could say, well, what can I change? How is this a reflection of me? How is this person the messenger? What am I focusing on that brought this about? What could I focus on instead? And what am I really wanting more of? So I give that my attention and reward that and reinforce that. Then we would live in an increasingly, you know, empowered world of possibilities, and obviously we'd be spreading that to everyone around us.
Exactly, because just like everything influences everything, the more that you are that light and you are that positive example, the more other people around you are going to be like, what's she doing? She looks different. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I'm going to start hanging out with her a little more often. And then it becomes contagious. It really does.
Especially since we're drawn to good feelings. If people are making us feel good because they're in a good place looking at good things, then it draws us to them. Obviously, you know, if we're not in a good place, we're focusing on negative things, we're drawn to people who are focusing on negative things, but there still is this attractive power that people who are in a positive place have, this you know, this magnetism. When people are in a good place, we want to be around them. And if we're those people who are in a good place, then people want to be around us. And then we're naturally magnetic and then ultimately uplifting to anyone who's magnetized to us.
Absolutely. And that's where, you know, when you introduced me, you had said about charismatic powerhouses. That's where it comes from. You know, you actually can learn to have that magnetism for people. It's something that can be done. We can change in that way. And it's all about, you know, not stepping away from what should I fix, or what's wrong with that person, or how do I deal with it, or what do I do now? Forget all that stuff. What do you want? And go create it. Start focusing on how you bring what you want into your life instead of fixing the stuff that you feel has been dealt to you.
And it's interesting, because when we stop focusing on what we want to fix and we actually just focus on what we want, then the things that we would want to fix get fixed. Yes. It's when we're not making them into problems and focusing on them and feeding them as problems, which is really just an excuse for not moving forward in a lot of ways. It's like, well, I need this to be different. This has to be, you know, I've got to fix this and that. And it's really us not owning what we really want and focusing on our goals and moving toward it and trusting and having faith that things will work themselves out if we go forward. But it's guaranteed that if we focus on the problems, we'll get more of them. So the alternative is to be open to the idea that if we focus on what we want and we go forward, that this stuff will work itself out, that the good stuff will actually fill our experience and leave no room for anything that isn't positive for us.
Yes. You know, that reminds me, I had a yoga teacher one time when I was first starting to understand these concepts. And she had a little bit of a head cold, but she was still having class. And she said, oh, I'm not feeling so well, so you might want to stay back, but I've decided I'm not going to keep it. And I'm like, you're not going to keep it? You're not going to keep the cold? So, you know, your analytical mind's like, well, how do you not keep a cold? What is she doing to get rid of the cold? She's not doing anything. She's just not buying into the fact that she has a cold. And she's moving forward and focusing on being healthy and forgetting about the cold, and, you know, moves on from there. So I always stuck with me. I'm not going to keep it. And we are, just by saying we have it and complaining and, you know, going through the whole, this is what I do when I have a cold, you're buying into it and you're allowing it to be.
Definitely. If obviously, ideally, we could just acknowledge it and then let go of it. Like you're saying, you know, I'm not going to keep it. I acknowledge this. I'm experiencing this at this moment, but I'm going to choose this other experience going forward instead. I prefer that one. Let's bring that in. I'll let go of this. I don't need this anymore.
Absolutely.
So obviously we've covered a whole bunch of really important things, but what do you believe is the most important thing for every person to know? If you could tell every human being on the planet one thing, what would it be?
The most important thing, I think, for anybody to know is that you deserve to have in this life whatever you're attracted to, whatever it is that you want, within moral boundaries, of course. But if you are unhappy in your life, If you are not, when I say you're not happy, I mean if you're not dancing in the streets happy, like if you don't jump out of bed and be like, I can't wait for today, there's things that you could do to change that. And not only are there things that you could do, it's not going to take quite as much as you think it's going to take. There really are ways to bring about change in your life that just catapult you into the direction that you want to go. I'm not going to say it's effortless. I mean, you have to work at whatever it is that you want. But the work, when you're doing what you want to do, it's not work, it's fun. So the effort is so much smaller. And secondly, there are professionals out there that can help you through this process. If I would have said, 10 years ago, you would have said, hey, Crystal, you're going to become a life coach. When I was a software engineer, I would have laughed myself off of my chair because seriously, I was a smart girl and who was going to tell me how to live a life, right? Isn't that something we all know? I was blown away by so many things. When I would read books, they'd be like, how did nobody ever tell me this? How did I not know this existed? And then I would do little tests and play it out and it would work. And I'd be like, holy crap, this is huge. And I became a life coach. So you can do these things on your own. I'm not saying you absolutely need someone, in the helping profession, a healer, a coach, whatever. But to me, it's choosing the path that you want to take to get there. So if my roof leaks, I could get up on a ladder and start hammering in nails and cover up the spot, or I can hire a professional. And chances are I'm going to go with the professional because it's going to be quicker, it's going to be quality work, it's going to be thorough, and I'm much more guaranteed a functioning roof for the next 10 or 20 or 30 years than I am if I went up there and start hammering around. So, the message really is, if you're not happy, I think there's a statistic out there that says at least 80% of the people are not happy with what they do with their life. And that's just professionally. That's not counting the people who are unhappy with relationships and all these other things in your life. That's far too many people. So if you want it, you deserve to have it. There's ways to get it. And go out there and find somebody who's done this stuff before, who's skilled in this knowledge, who reads all the books and dedicates their life to it. And it's going to be a lot easier to get what you want, and it'll be a lot quicker. For me, it all comes down to, my transition started with the tragedy, as I said. That taught me that no matter how long I live on this earth, it's probably not going to seem long enough. There's so much that you could fit into a lifetime. Why waste a second of it? My mantra is your life, your dreams, your terms, no regrets.
That was a very powerful message. That's good. I like that. Obviously, if we could decide, I want to be one of those people who's dancing in the streets happy all the time, and then just listen to ourselves about what feels like the best route to get there, then obviously for some people that'll be figuring certain things out themselves or reading certain books. And for some people it'll be going to some workshop that'll come up because they'll notice it because now they're in the mindset of, I actually would like this, and suddenly they see it. Or it'll be, maybe I'll look for a life coach and they'll be drawn to the right one or whatever. But ultimately, it's up to us simply to say, I would like to be one of those people who's dancing in the streets happy. I want to be dancing in the streets happy. And so what's the next step? What do I do to get there?
Absolutely. And that's it. That unto itself, just admitting that you want it and knowing that I'm going to go for it is probably the biggest step, is getting your mind there to just say, I can have this, and come hell or high water, I'm going to do it.
That's the first step to anything, that we decide we want to go somewhere, because otherwise we're just going to stay where we are. And it's up to us to say, I would like something else. I would like, or decide exactly what that is. But even just I would like something other than what I'm experiencing. But then to be able to start to articulate what exactly that is obviously even more powerful. And then to just be able to say, okay, I'm ready to listen to the directions. Now I'm motivated because I've just conceived of an alternative. And until I conceived of an alternative, I certainly wasn't going to leave where I am, because there's like, what else is there? But once I decide there is something else, then now it's worth doing whatever it takes to get there and figure out what there is and actually make that happen and see what I'm drawn to, that I can be facilitated in getting there.
Absolutely. I completely agree. there's so much that can be done. And the biggest thing holding us back is not even realizing the possibilities that could be there. And I struggle that with myself after all these years. I'll be like, wow, what if I could do this? And then 2 days later, I'll come back and revisit my journal and say, wow, why was I limiting it by that? Why couldn't I have that instead? Or why couldn't I go here? Or why couldn't it be bigger? Because there's always that little part of your brain that's holding you back a little bit, saying, oh, that's not realistic. You're a little crazy there. That's too much. You know, trying to hamper you down a little bit. But continue. If you want this, the next time, double it, triple it, and just keep going. Because there really is no limit.
Yeah. If only we could, I mean, ideally, we would all recognize that and question whenever we ask for something, recognize, okay, maybe for now, but ultimately when I get there, I know that there will be even grander ahead of me. I'll conceive of something greater. And when I get there, I'll conceive of something greater. And when I get there, I'll conceive of something greater. So why am I limiting myself to this now when I know that when I get there, I will also see an alternative that's even better? And so right now I'm just open to, you know, vastly better. Let's just take the next step that's on the way there. And and then I can keep expanding my conception of what's possible, that in every moment it will be perfect. But ultimately that perfection, the capacity for perfection will expand. At every moment I'll be happy, but the capacity for that happiness and for what that contains and what supports me in that will expand. And where we're in this, like, you know, always happy and ever expanding place where the possibilities are always open to us, and we're always in the process of actualizing them and watching the expansion and feeling the expansion take place.
Yeah, you focus on a dream, you accomplish the dream, you get a new dream, and you just keep going.
Mm-hmm. This is great. This was a fantastic conversation. Thank you for this.
Thank you so much. I love the opportunity, and I love your thought-provoking questions.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate that you were able to be part of this and that you joined in. And thank you for sharing your story and lessons with me today. This was fantastic.
Wonderful. And if I could just add, if anybody is listening to this and really stepping up and saying, okay, I'm going to trust for now that there's something I want to do next, and you're interested in learning more, I have a Soul Searching 101 ebook available on my website. And I'm currently offering a Do What You Love Now session, which is a complimentary phone discussion where I'll help in whatever way I can for up to 60 minutes. So check out my website at seekingasenseofpurpose.com.
Excellent. Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you.
And thank you to all who are watching. Have a great day.